So tonight we're meeting with Jefferson Godard, and Jefferson and I have spoken a few times, but we've never actually met, and I'm looking forward to doing that. And I guess you can correct me, but I think you're sort of a Renaissance guy, you know, in terms of all these different kinds of art endeavors that you are participating in, and you're sort of covering, you know, various facets of it. To a large extent, I want to focus on collecting, but even before that, like I've done with others, where did you grow up? Where did you go to high school?
So, good question, actually. And I saw a high school friend. Am I still too loud, Paul?
Yes.
Okay. Let me take the headphones off. So, anybody just let me know that's listening if I need to.
Now we got to turn it up a bunch. Go ahead.
Okay. So, I'm from Miami, Florida, born in 1970, and I attended South Miami Senior High School. So I'm a native Miamian, and I did graduate school in Berlin, Germany, well, in Dessau at the Bauhaus. I'm an architect, and I lived in Berlin, and then after living in Berlin for 3 years, one can't live in Miami, so I came to Chicago to continue my urban experience, and started teaching, started collecting, and got involved in the art world pretty much in Chicago.
Okay, now let's pause for a second. Let me unmute everybody to make sure that everybody can hear Jefferson all right. Are we doing okay? Can you guys hear him all right?
No.
Quiet.
Too quiet.
No.
Not quite. I think you got to be louder, Jefferson. Let me mute everybody again. And somehow we have to find a happy medium, so maybe you have to bellow a little bit.
Okay. So, hi, everybody.
All right, so let's assume, all right, so we got the part about Miami to Berlin to Chicago. Why Chicago? I mean, just because it has nice architecture?
No, it would be an easy leap, but no, my partner actually was at the Art Institute, the School of the Art Institute, in Fibers and Materials. So I had just met him in 2004, and he got accepted in 2005 to come here, so we moved in 2005, and we stayed. But it was definitely a choice, though, because I always loved Chicago, and I thought it was a great urban center, and it was a wonderful experience, opportunity.
Were you collecting art before you arrived in Chicago?
No, I had friends, I had painter friends mainly that had given me work, so I had a few paintings. I bought a painting. I'd always gone to museums and galleries, but I never bought work. I never really collected.
Okay, and then I'm getting comments here, Jefferson, that someone says you're still almost inaudible. I'm wondering what we should do as a solution. I don't know. We can go back to the headphones if you want, and then talk more quietly.
I'll just speak in a normal tone of voice. Is this good?
I think so. A little softer, even maybe.
Okay. How about can the person that can't hear me? I'll just speak like this. That's fine.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, pillow talk.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, I think that's a better solution.
I'll be Billy D. Williams.
Let me know if that works better for you, or somebody else if you're having a problem. But I don't know. These are Phillip says it's perfect. So all right, we're good to roll. Thank you, gang. All right. So how did you? So you had been given some art. How did you happen to purchase your first work of art?
I'll show you. I went to the Museum of Contemporary Photography and saw a show by Terence Simon.
Why did you go there?
Because I saw that there was a show called The Innocents. It was an intriguing name, and I saw this work, which I'm going to do it poor justice by showing on the computer, but it's Terence Simon, and it's you can't really see it with the glare, obviously, but it's a photograph of a man that was exonerated of a crime based upon a photograph that implicated him. And the photograph really spoke to me, and I didn't really know to the depths that people collected. And so when I first bought the photograph, I spent a lot of time researching it because it was sold from Gagosian Gallery. So you can imagine the price tag that came with it, and I was very surprised. And I didn't expect a photograph to cost that much. So it took me a long time to buy. Well, not a long time, but a few weeks of just really, really thinking about it, but being obsessed with the photograph.
So how long, when do you think this purchase was made?
2005. 2005.
And I think of you as being a video collector. Is that
I am, actually.
So how did you get into video, or what was the segue?
So video was basically, I buy this photograph from Gagosian, and I want to know what I'm getting myself into. So I made an appointment with all the galleries in New York. I wasn't working at the time, so I had a luxury of time. And I made an appointment with every gallery that I could find in New York over the period of 2 to 3 weeks. Every day, went, they were open, went to all these galleries and saw art, and contemporary, of course, and and I saw, and I was really interested in video. It gravitated to me. I really, especially Israeli video artists, for some reason. I have no Israeli connection beyond being from Miami, but the point is that I really was interested in all of this work, and it just fascinated me, and I really, really was drawn to it, and I really liked it. And also, one of the things that I noticed was I could take my time with choosing, and this wasn't the reason that I chose video work. I studied a little bit of film in grad school. I was interested in film. But the point is that I noticed actually one of the repercussions of collecting videos, you get to take your time. You don't have to make a snap decision at opening, because it's video is starting to sell, thankfully, of course, but it's not a hot market thing that sells out at the opening. So at that time, I was able to wait, to take a year to think about a video.
So the market value or upside potential of the artwork was something that didn't provoke you or intrigue you, or, I mean, this isn't a capitalistic pursuit as a collector.
Well, the photograph was. That's funny you asked that. The video wasn't. So the photograph was. What compelled me to buy the photograph from Terence Simon, the one that I showed with the glare in the bedroom, was the fact that I could sell it again. That was the final nail in the coffin on that deal. But no, with video, you'd be amiss right now to be thinking of it as an investment. I mean, it will be eventually, but I mean, right now, it comprises maybe 5% or 3% of the secondary market.
When did you realize you were a collector of video, per se?
And that'll lead to a segue to more introduction about me in Chicago. So I had about 10 videos at the time, maybe 8, and this is 2000, I think early 2006. And I called the MCA Chicago because I didn't understand why they weren't showing these artists in their galleries. It made no sense to me.
The MCA, for those of you who are not in Chicago, is the Museum of Contemporary Art.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, I need to not use acronyms. I hate acronyms myself. Sorry. Anyway, so Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago, and I called and I said, I'm a collector here in Chicago, and I'd like you to know that I have all this great video work if you want to show it.
Wait. Who did you call? You
That's
just
the funny thing. I'm going to get to that.
Sorry.
So I called and I said, I want to speak with someone about showing art in this, and they put me in touch with curatorial. And I don't know how I got in touch with Elizabeth Smith, the head curator, right? The head curator at the Museum of Contemporary Art Chicago at the time, and now it's Michael Darling. And she talked to me at length. And then at the end of the conversation, as we're closing, she said, I want to come out to your house. I want to see the work. I want to meet you. And I'm just blown away. And then, of course, I Googled who she was. And immediately I was, embarrassed. And I didn't know who this woman was when I was talking to her. But she's such a figure in the art and architecture world. And then she came out to my house. And that's basically, that kind of cemented it, I guess, when she was at my house looking at my work, and this major curator is interested in me and what I'm talking about, and that's kind of, and then I joined a group at the museum called VERGE, and I then became the director, so it just catapulted off of that.
Off topic slightly, did you see that Elizabeth has just won an award and she was selected as a fellow with the Center for Curatorial Leadership?
Oh, it's fantastic.
A wonderful honor, and she's like one of 10 in the world. And I guess they identify her as a leader, and they want to augment that. So I think that's really cool, and I'm certain that's just because of your relationship with her. All right. So then, since 2006, 2007, have you purchased art that isn't video?
A few, very few, like maybe 10 pieces that are
Some
photographed.
people think 10's a lot. How many videos do you own?
A lot. Not hundreds, but
Over
a lot.
10.
Over 10, yeah, over 10.
And
yeah.
how many videos are, how do you present your video? How,
I'll walk you around and just show you. Please, anybody, let me know if I'm too loud. So I'm going to have to turn some volumes up. So this is Kate Gilmore. Oh, maybe I should turn off the kitchen light. Sorry. The glare does wonderful things, huh? So this is Kate Gilmore.
This is a new art form we're experiencing right now. Not the video of a video.
So this is Kate Gilmore. She's a video artist of quite some notoriety, and she's, maybe if I pull back a little bit. Nope, it's not getting it better. But anyway, that's one. That's affixed to a column in the kitchen. And then I've got in the dining room right here, let me turn back on the light for you. In the dining room, I have a video and a computer monitor over here on the wall. And that's by Udo Nellemans. And that's right here. There's a light box by Udo Nellemans here. There's a lovely video. I don't want to say the word favorite because that's so banal, but one by Phil Collins. And this is, I'll show you a little snippet of it right now. I think I'm showing you a snippet of it. Yeah, here it is. If you can hear it, can you hear the sound?
Yes.
So this is Turner Prize nominee Phil Collins. The louder you scream, the faster we go. It doesn't usually play that loud. That's actually one of the interesting things, is that they all share the same space. In the window here is a Martin Murphy video on the floor next to the window. And the Rashid Johnson video, he's a Chicago-based artist who's currently, our video is on loan to the Miami Art Museum. And then it's going to the High Museum in Atlanta. And then in the back, the bedroom, the second bedroom.
So, she belongs to you because your school does for music. Well, yes, in a way. Then she is your private property.
If you can hear me, this is Guy Benaire, Stealing Beauty. This video is, he and his family go into IKEA and pretend to live in the store and create this narrative based on Karl Marx. And we're the only private people to own this work, actually. It's only in institutions otherwise.
How large? These are all in editions, right?
The one that you're seeing now is edition of 6.
Are they usually 6 or under?
6 or under. 6 or under.
Yeah.
One of the 2D works that we have is this Mark Hanforth, which was, this Mark Hanforth, which decorated the, now it's going to be upside down, great. Anyway, this Mark Hanforth silkscreen, which decorated the MCA Plaza. The hangar was there, and we bought this to benefit the MCA. We do have, that's one of the 2D works. And then finally, this photograph by Daniel Gordon, right here, which is a collage photograph. So yeah.
Do you and your partner share the enthusiasm for the art in your home?
Yes, actually, in the past 2 years, because of a purchase and because of a framing cost, he actually has to make the decision too, because I bought a 2D work and it was very expensive to frame, and
right.
At that moment he said I have to be 50 on all these decisions too, and I said okay, fine. So yeah.
So, all right. So, are you the lead on this, or does he sometimes say, Jefferson, I want this so much, and you say, I mean, is it who's driving the acquisitions?
Oh, it's me, definitely, because I mean, in the past year with all my new responsibilities this year, I've come down a little bit on having much time to do research, but I used to spend at least 4 hours a day doing research every single day on artists, so I was constantly being exposed to, I mean, online granted, but still, I was constantly researching artists. I mean, so I'm always finding things. There's never a moment when there's something that I don't want, you know, and I just can't afford, of course, but you know.
That's fabulous. So you have this wonderful disease that some of us share. And yours is in an accelerated state. On most evenings in your home, how many videos are on? None, or all, or some, or what?
At this point, Jason Fohnberg wrote a lovely article about me in New City, and Mark Giordino wrote an article in Christian Science Monitor, and they both mentioned that I watched the videos all the time. So I did for those few years, all the time. Now 2 to 3, to tell you the truth. So 2 to 3 are always on. Kate Gilmore on the column right behind me right here, and you can see in the background right here, that black line there, that's the Kate Gilmore is always on. There's a Mika Rottenberg here. You're probably not going to be able to see it, but that usually is always on. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, at least those 2 are always on.
When you say always on, you don't turn it off at night when you go to bed.
Oh no, I meant when we're active in the house. We turn them off when we go to bed. Yeah.
Oh, do you? I have a video that I never turn off. I mean,
really?
It runs for months. You know, and then sometimes it runs from a computer, so sometimes I have to reboot the computer. It's a piece by Jason Salaban.
Okay, yeah.
And I never shut it off. So you have more videos than you have the ability to show at one time.
Exactly. And it's funny, when I first started collecting, I hope I'm not interrupting your question here, but when I first started collecting, one of the things I noticed that I was talking to people and meeting people, and they told me, oh, we have this artwork and we don't know what it is because it's in a crate. And my first, you know, rule of collecting when I started collecting was, I'm not going to have anything in a crate. I'm going to see everything. I'm not going to store anything. And now, of course, I have 7 video devices in the house, and there's work that I haven't seen in over a year. So I'm doing the same thing that I criticized all these other people for. And I missed out on some wonderful opportunities because I could have bought some wonderful installations that I didn't have the foresight to buy because I didn't think I could put them up.
How many different kinds of ways of displaying video do you have? I mean, is it all on LEDs or plasma screens, or is some stuff projected? Is it some of it come with its own proper display ability?
We have an Abe Sussman that's on a small device. We have, and everything else pretty much comes DVD or codex burned file that we can then install in some kind of backup master copy or Betamax file or what have you. So many, but the forms, to answer your question, cathode ray TV, so basic box TV, liquid crystal display, plasma, projection, and a handheld small media device for the Abe Sussman. So I guess 5 we have in the house.
So that some of the art that you own should only be played on certain kinds of medium or device, right?
Right, exactly. It's true. Some work, it's stated in the, this work, the Phil Collins work that I was showing, which again you probably can't see, but this work is, it should be seen in a darkened room with a light trap, proper speakers. It's got a 5-page installation that goes along with it, specifying, and the director of Tanya Bonakdar came to our home when he was in town, and I just showed it to him here, and he says, oh, it looks great. So, you know, none the wiser, but hey.
Right. And, all right, so, but now you're doing more than collecting. You've got other, you've become more engaged in the art world in other capacities. Now what are you teaching, and where are you teaching?
Well, I'm teaching at Columbia College. I teach actually interior architecture. I still am involved in architecture just a little bit. And going back to your part of what you're just questioning, is I also started curating back. I got invited to show my collection several times. And I did it about 3 times, once in Berlin, a couple times here in Chicago, curated selections from my collection, and it got very boring. And I decided that I was never going to curate my work that I owned again. And also it was a chance for me to work with other work, right, that I didn't own. So I curated about 3 shows, one last year called Overkill at the Mission, which got some positive nods. And I've curated, and as you say, I teach. And I teach basically CAD and studio classes in architecture, interior architecture.
And now you've opened an art gallery.
Oh, and now I've opened an art gallery.
Oh.
Yeah. It's exciting, and Paul, I'm delighted to tell you, I was just at UIC tonight for the Open Studios. I went in for just a brief minute, and it was so nice that people come up to me and say, "Oh, we saw you in Artforum." I got an Artforum nod this month, which just blew my mind, and we got a Time Out review, which also was just amazing. That was the first thing. We have a Time Out review the second week, you know, that we're in business. It was just kind of mind-blowing. And yeah, so it's been received very well. One of our artists, Casilda Sanchez, was recently reviewed by Lauren Weinberg in Time Out and the Ground Floor show that's up at Hyde Park Art Center right now here in Chicago. So yeah, it's busy. I don't know. I don't have any free time anymore. That's the only thing that's really changed. It's just, but I'm still so passionate that it doesn't really bother me. It doesn't feel like work, so it's okay.
How do you select what you're going to show in your gallery?
Ooh.
We need to say that your gallery is what, solely video, right?
My gallery is entitled Aspect Ratio. The name for legal purposes on the website is aspectratioprojects.com. So there's a company in Los Angeles called Aspect Ratio. It's a film post-production company. So we had to put the projects on there. And we only represent video art in the way that so for example, I was the acquisition director for VERGE, and I met this artist, Gilad Ratman, in New York several years ago, got his work into the Museum of Contemporary Art Chicago, and he's the first person that I showed with Gilad Ratman. The next artist that I'm showing...
Did you own it? Do you own work of his before the show?
No, I don't own. Actually, the only person that I own work from, no, I didn't own work actually for the acquisition director, and I actually left as the acquisition director because now I have a gallery. So, you know, I don't believe, I'm very strong about conflict of interest, so I try to be careful of that. And I don't own any work except for Guy Benaire. I'm trying to think, yeah, except for Guy Benaire is the only person that I own work from in the first, I think, 2 years of my gallery that I had planned, you know.
How do you differentiate? Why is there some, this is a heavy question, why is there somebody you want to show in your gallery but you don't want to own them?
It is a good question. I guess, you know, sometimes it's funny you ask. I think working with the museum, I was with the museum, when I say working with, I mean, I was a donor. When Elizabeth Smith invited me to be part of this group, VERGE, I then became the director for 2 years afterward, and then helped start a group called eMERGE, which is still very active at the Museum of Contemporary Art here in Chicago. And as the acquisition director, there was always a conflict of interest with work that you bring in and own, and always having to walk this line. But to answer your question directly, there's work that I want to show, and also I'm not an impulse buyer. I've never been an impulse buyer. I've never gone to a show and seen work and said, oh, I got to have that. I've always sat and thought about it. I really love the work that I show in my house, or that I enjoy, that I own, and it takes time to really fall in love with it, to be perfectly honest. So that's one of the reasons.
Okay. Does saleability have anything to do with what you show?
No, yes and no. I mean, we are having, okay, for example, I do want to have something affordable, whatever that means. I mean, affordability is such a weird thing to say when you're talking about thousands of dollars, right? But I mean, but I want to have something affordable in the $2,000 price range and under at every show, because I do want people to be able, if they want to get involved in collecting, if they want to buy something. But no, it doesn't dictate the work that I show, the saleability of it, not at all, because it's up to the artist to decide. I mean, it's a careful negotiation between me and the artist, but I still would allow the artist to show whatever they wanted to show in the gallery because it's their work. It's their show. I'm mitigating all of this with them, but it's their show.
Beautiful. Now, when you talk about the gallery aspect ratio, you talk in plural, and you say we. Do you have the same partner that you have in the gallery that you have in life, or is it?
No, and it's weird. Partners become such an odd term now because
True.
I don't know what to say because we're not married, because you can't get married and blah, blah,
I know.
blah.
One of these days this will be rectified, I hope, and the same confusion won't last. So you have,
and lover is way too personal. It's like, whoa. Anyway, so no, it's separate people. It's a lovely couple. She's a filmmaker and he's a doctor, and they coerced me into opening the gallery over the period of a year, and I said no immediately when they asked me. No, thank you. This is a great idea, but I'm not really interested. And after a while, I realized this would be a great way to continue to work with artists, continue to work with, maybe things that, like, for example, we just showed the $12,000 Gilad Ratman video. Oh, I just gave the price away. But anyway, I can't afford a $12,000 video right now. So it's great to show it in the gallery and have this moment to look at the work and appreciate it for 5 weeks, 3 days a week. So it's one of the reciprocal. But yeah, to answer your question, my two partners are a lovely couple, and we've become, they're not backers. They're definitely not. They're definitely partners. We do work together. I have creative control of the gallery, but we definitely work together, and they're very communicative, and we talk all throughout the day, almost every day. Sweet.
Now, so there's a video that you love. It's $12,000 that you have in your possession, so to speak. What are the mores of copying it and having a copy for yourself? I mean, can you technically copy this video?
Of course, I made a copy for a collector in Houston and mailed it to him. For somebody here in Chicago, another collector, for a curator at a museum that wants to show it next year, and another not in Chicago. And yeah, I have several copies, but it's not the real work. So the real work comes with a certificate, and it's a good question. It's a very good question. I mean, it's like photographing a photograph or copying a photograph, but you don't really own the work. I mean, I guess that's what it basically comes down to. We do invite academics over and we do screenings. I probably have several hundred works that I don't even own that I have discs of, like Ryan Trey Carton. I have many of his works that I only screen to academics, of course, not to collectors, not to anybody, but we do show work of other artists. So it's because to get the work out there, things like
there are artists who would say, don't do that, don't show anything that isn't the actual video?
Actually, Guy Benair told me a long time ago, Guy Benair is an Israeli video artist who's extremely well known, and he's the one with the stealing beauty in the back bedroom. He actually told me you should share this work with academics, with students, with young artists. This is who you should show the work to. You should, and that's the only people that I do share the work with. If I don't own it.
You sent something to a couple in Texas? Is that what you said? Did you send a video, a disc, a copy to somebody in Texas?
Yeah, Houston. Sorry, it's a collector. I said collector, not couple.
And is this collector going to keep it and then pretend to own it, or what's going to happen?
He actually, I don't know the name of his space, otherwise I would disclose it, but I don't. So I'm just going to say he's actually opening a space, and he came with the recommendation of a curator. So I actually just gave him the copy. What I did with, we worked in, we put a watermark in the video. It says preview copy. When we burned other copies that we sent out to other people. It's a really good question because we don't want people, someone did tell us offhandedly at a party once, oh, why should I buy it? I already have a copy of it.
Right.
which is dreadful, but.
Good, thank you for that distinction. Cool. Are there people out here who've got questions? Look at that, raise your hand. Phillip, good to hear from you. Go ahead, Phillip. Wait, there, yeah, there you go.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Phillip, how are you? It just went
Phillip,
blank.
I can't hear you now. Go ahead. Phillip, I'm going to come back to you. I mean, as soon as we heard you, I think something ceased to work. Therese, go ahead, and we'll go back to Phillip in a moment. Go ahead, Therese.
Okay. Hi, Jefferson. Thank you for sharing everything with us. I have a quick question about when you were talking about loaning one of your pieces to somebody. How does that work with you? This came up in a conversation with another artist friend of mine, and we were wondering what happens if you have a piece that you want to borrow for a show. How does that affect you? Who covers the insurance? Who takes care of shipping? And is that something that you do often?
Yes, and are you talking about video, Therese, or are you talking about just video? Okay.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, for you personally, yes.
Okay, so for video, we just loan the copy out. I don't show the work in my home if I've loaned it out, so don't say the Rashid Johnson right now. But as far as insurance goes with video work, to be perfectly honest with you, it's a good question, but it's really the cost of burning the DVD. I know it sounds dreadful, but the truth is that's really, and also, I mean, even, because yes, the work is worth something, but the work in the end is really the certificate of authenticity. The commodifiable, transferable body of work includes a certificate. So you're not really loaning that. So therefore, technically, the insurance value would just be the cost of the DVD. I make sure that I get all my DVDs back. I'm really fastidious about that. I don't allow people to hang on to them. I send them an email a couple weeks after the show, and people think a lot like, oh yeah, we'll send it to you, and then you have to remind them. That's something I do, because people aren't usually savvy about burning DVDs. So that's the one thing that I would say. Keep on top of them in a polite way about getting your work back, definitely. Unless they're sensitive and they're going to share it with people like academics or other curators, then of course that's different. But if it's just a gallery, I'll get it back. I mean, I say just a gallery and I'm owning a gallery, right? But you know what I hope you know what I'm saying.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Is there a problem? Do you think it's a problem with people willy-nilly copying videos?
I don't think people are that savvy to it, to be honest. I don't think people have burning DVD burners on their computers. I mean, to copy the work. No, but I mean to copy the work from a DVD and then make a DVD of it. I mean that takes a little bit. That takes software, and it takes a little bit of software and a little bit of savvy. That's just my perception. But
I hope you're right. Okay, Phillip, go ahead.
Okay, hi Jefferson, it's Phillip Hardigan.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Full disclosure, I'm actually the guy who wrote that Time Out review a few weeks ago. So hello again, Jefferson.
Good to see you, sir.
The question that I had was, I mean, there's a lot of 2D artists who are sort of participating in this webinar and listening to you now. So I just wondered for you, what are you looking for in a video that would make you want to show it? What is it that really grabs you about a video and says, I really must take this and show it in my gallery?
Relationships with the body, relationships with how the body explores space, how the body reacts to space, humor, sexuality, how the body's placed in perilous situations or in situations that challenge it. That's really what's interested me. I'm reaching out a little bit. I recently saw the work of an artist that works with trying to destroy video, and he's questioning the media itself, and I may show work of his. He's very young, so I don't know if I want to exploit him yet, but the point is that that's basically what it is. It's relationships with the body and the body in space. That's really what interests me the most.
Okay. Would it ever have any narrative content, or is it all mainly sort of something that has abstract qualities more than narrative?
No, actually, a lot of it's narrative. A lot of the work is narrative, or at least seemingly narrative. So there's some kind of allegory narrative embedded within it. But even the performative works have some sort of. But a good thing about video, of course, is that one can enter and leave at any time, and a good video should be able to convey that you can see 5 seconds or 5 minutes, you know, depending on the length of the video.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Jefferson.
Thank you, Philip.
Philip, did you say that you wrote that review in Time Out?
I did. I've actually been writing about art for Hyperallergic, this outfit in New York, but then over the summer I started doing pieces for Time Out too. So I haven't mentioned that yet because I didn't think it would be relevant, but tonight it does appear to
all
be.
All of a sudden, yeah. You got to be careful in this class. Wonderful.
He's a good writer. He's a very good writer.
Thanks. It was one of the best pieces I've written, actually. It was kind of an inspiring piece to watch.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to work with the artist, and I really, really believe in Godard very much. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go to Venice to see his. He's representing Venice at the. Representing Israel at the Venice Biennale next year. But I can't wait to. I can't wait to see that piece. Hopefully.
So what would you do for that? Would that be a large-scale installation, projection, multi-channel video?
It's a 5-channel install, maybe 6, but I believe it's 5. And he's producing the work in Israel, and then part of it, and then he's producing the rest of it in the pavilion in Venice. He's videotaping there, and then putting the whole thing up. And yeah, it's going to be. It's a very ambitious project, actually.
Can you define what you mean by 3-channel, 5-channel?
Okay, so what you see in my home everywhere, these are single-channel videos or one video that's shown on monitor, projector, what have you. A 2-channel or a 3-channel would be 3 videos that either work in harmony, in tandem, and you know, and that are shown in the same space or in spaces nearby each other. But they work together. I mean, again, Isaac Julian is somebody that only works in 3-channel, 4-channel work. So, yeah.
How does somebody, I was just watching an Isaac Julian video a couple of days ago at the Milwaukee Art Museum. I think he's a wonderful artist. How does somebody go about making a multi-channel video? Do they do one channel and then do another one? When they splice and edit and cut and bring things, because sometimes they're showing the same thing on all 3 screens, and sometimes it's totally different. I'm just wondering, I mean, all of those things must be fair game, right?
Yeah, his work, I think, is about immersion, so I think he has to then give you a similar type of image to double it, to create this sort of spatial relationship and engulf you. I think that's what his work is, a lot of what his work is about, but I think there's different, like Trey Carton does multi-channel video installations, and it's about also dispelling you or disarming you. So I think it can be different things.
How many galleries in the world are there that show predominantly only video? There's
really 3 that I know of. There's one in LA, one in Rome, and one in Chicago. From what I know of, and I would love to, if somebody knows.
The one in Chicago is you or somebody else?
No, me, of course.
There's somebody I don't know?
There's Monitor Gallery in Rome that shows predominantly video, and Young Projects shows a lot of video work. But I don't know of that many. There's not that many video art galleries in the world.
And have you attended the Moving Image Fair?
I was actually a participant on a panel in the Moving Image Fair this year. Moving Image Fair is in New York. It has its, I think, 3rd iteration this year, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
And I was on a panel with Lisa Doran, who's a curator at the Art Institute, Berta Fischel, who's a Reina Sofia curator, Fabienne, her last name escapes me, she's the director of Salon 94, a gallery in New York, and we talked about video. We talked actually about Teresa's question about what the work comprised of. You know, she asked about loaning work, and we talked about what do you get when you get video art. That's what the whole panel was about. I think Moving Image is a wonderful fair, actually, because most of the dealers aren't there.
How many different works of art are, so all the work there is on like monitors, or is it all different?
So if I don't know how old your panel is, but if they're at least 30-something and they've been to New York many times, or at least 40, I say, there's the Tunnel nightclub that was in Chelsea. And it's a big space, a cavernous space that they fill with monitors. And they have headphones attached to them with stools. and you can just navigate through the space and watch. I think there's 20 galleries, I think, or 18 to 20 galleries, and there's some projections. And the good thing is, again, I know I'm a gallerist here, but the gallerists aren't there for the most part. So you can just watch the work on your own. There's a QR code on the wall that you can access the name of the gallery if you're interested in the work, but it's quite a lovely experience, I think. And I believe it's free. I'm pretty positive it's free.
So Ed Winkleman's intricately involved in that, right?
Ed Winkleman and Murat, yes.
Yeah, and we did a webinar with Ed a year and a half ago, I think.
Oh, really? Did you talk about the
I'm sharing that with the other people in the group also, I mean, because they have access to all the, and I'd be glad to share it with you too, Jefferson, but they have all access to all the previously recorded webinars, so that I'm just thinking if that's of interest, because I thought the webinar with Ed was really solid. And, you know, I mean, for my money, I think listening to as many of the previous webinars as possible is a really wise way to go. I mean, just because you hear one collector doesn't mean you've heard them all. Sorry, Spiro, I know. And just because you've spoken, you know, you've heard from one curator doesn't mean you've gotten all the opinions. All of these folks have different personalities and different aesthetics and go about doing what they do in a slightly different way. Who else has questions for Jefferson? Anybody else? We've stunned them, my friend.
We've stunned them. Yeah, I think the only other thing that I'd like to say is that about video art is just that I think that it is an avant-garde medium, and I think that people are afraid of it for the most part. I mean, people mean collectors, and I think that it's a shame because I think that the work is, it's a wonderfully open medium because most everybody has some kind of projection device. So it's a more democratic medium, I think, than a lot of other work. It has many intellectual themes, but unlike painting sometimes, it can, I think, when I say unlike painting, meaning the intellectual qualities of video, it's much more tangible a lot of times than a lot of work that references specific themes, I think, that, yeah, might not be as reachable to a general audience, whereas I think video is just, yeah, I think it has, and I know what I'm saying could walk the boundary of both, because painting can also have a direct value with people, and portrait painting can speak to people's understanding of work, and but yeah, I think video is much more democratic.
You know, I think it's interesting that you talk about the state of video today. I closed my gallery in 2004. Excuse me. And a lot of the reason was that I really switched from showing static work to new media, which included video and other things that plugged in, like robotics. And I feel like I lost my audience. And a lot of times people would ask about, they would ask about how to display it and whether it came with a plasma screen. And frequently I had to sell a video with the equipment to show it on. That's not so anymore, is it?
Well, yes and no. We're actually selling the Gilad Ratman with the monitor included, interestingly enough. So we're working with Braverman Gallery in Israel, the gallery that consigned the work, and they wanted to sell it with the monitor because they thought it would be easier for people. I think people Paul, do like to buy. So for those young artists that are, or even middle-aged artists that are listening that work in video, I would say that it's not a bad thing to choose the medium sometimes. I mean the device that shows the work. It's not a bad thing because it does take that out of the equation when the collector, because sometimes the collector does get confused as to how they're going to show the work. They don't realize that they can show it on a television or they can project it. So it's not a bad idea.
Now let's go with the corollary to the question, which is, I mean, I had some difficulty selling video to museums who were particularly interested in the archival properties and didn't know that they wanted to buy a DVD because they didn't know if DVDs would be around in 25 years. And so that often they would want, they figured that the best thing to do would be to buy a hard drive, because then they wouldn't have to, basically a self-contained, like a mini computer that just only played the video. so all they had to do was plug it in because they assumed that there would still be electricity and that the device, if used irregularly, would last that long. How much of a concern is that when you're buying or selling video, and what the format is that conveys it? Or
we talked about that actually in the panel this year at the Moving Image Art Fair, and you can actually access that panel online as well. There's some trace of it somewhere. It's called "What do you get when you buy video art?" And I think the artist should definitely share the uncompressed file, the uncompressed video file with the museum or the institution, but not with the collector, because that's the job of the gallery to keep. Which in the certificate of authenticity, most of my certificates of authenticity say that the gallery will burn me a new copy. I mean, Tanya Bonnetar Gallery gave me a new copy of this Phil Collins and didn't even charge me. Even though I have an archival DVD mini, I have a beta cam of this video, they still burn the DVD for me for free. I'm not saying that's going to happen with all museums, but I mean all galleries. But a museum and artist should definitely share any kind of uncompressed file with them, and then it's up to the museum then to back it up. But I mean, look at it this way: it's like Matthew Barney. The Museum of Contemporary Art Chicago has Matthew Barney's dumbbells, which are made out of petroleum jelly that they have to keep refrigerated. Ava Hesse's work is evidently a pain in the neck to archive. So it's not just media work, not to sound defensive, but it's not just media work that has its own pitfalls of archival qualities. But it's an important concern for the collectors, you say, because the collector.
Remember what Mark Quinn of the sculptures out of blood, right?
Yeah, right. And you turn off the refrigerator and it just falls apart, right? Yeah.
I know, it disappears. I'm sure I can come up with more examples, in a moment. I remember an artist, I keep blanking on his name, who made sculptures and vitrines and out of beeswax, and then would put bees in there to complete the sculpture. The bees would then modify it to their intent. And I knew a gallery that put it in a window, and it melted. Yeah, I know.
Oh my gosh.
Tragic. Yeah, but I mean, these are the things that happen with new concepts sometimes. Mika has a question or a comment. Go ahead, please, Mika.
Well, I was wondering if you've seen Andy Warhol's Empire State Building movie. If you thought that
I have. It's a brilliant piece. Am I too loud? I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
No, Micah pulled away from the phone. No, it's a brilliant film. I think it's a brilliant film. It really is.
I thought that would be cool to have running in your apartment. Since you're into art.
No. Oh, that's a good point. Actually, I like that work a lot. I actually like his video, the film piece Blowjob better. Actually, have you ever seen that piece?
No.
It's a close-up of a man's face. The camera doesn't move. It's a fixed camera, and you see a man smoking a cigarette, a young man tilting his head back, and only by the title do you have any inclination of what's happening, but you never see anything. And it's 20 minutes long, and there's no extraneous sound or there's no one talking. It's just the guy smoking a cigarette. It's a really great piece, actually. And then, of course, his screen tests. He's a wonderful, wonderful filmmaker, Andy Warhol was.
What about, I'm sorry, Mika, please continue.
Oh, I just was going to say the only other thing I've seen, well, his Frankenstein, I've never seen it again. I saw it a long time ago. Did you ever see Andy Warhol's Frankenstein?
I haven't seen it, but I know what you're talking about. Actually, I almost met I almost met one of the actors from that movie in Cologne. I was in Germany, and I almost had the chance to meet that actor, but I was told at least as much, but it didn't happen. I never saw the film, though.
It was in 3D, I believe.
It's in 3D?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it was pretty freaky. He'd reach into a guy's body and pull his guts out, and that was a long time ago.
Oh,
before,
wow.
What it is now.
He experimented with what Andy Warhol did, which I think was really great with his film work, is he did a piece called Sleep. He did a piece called Eat. And he did these works where they were durational, but they were film. It was durational film based, and he really they were painful almost because, you know, watching someone sleep, watching the Empire State Building, yeah, it's beautiful. We can see its aesthetic quality, but it's painful, you know, to watch a building for 8 hours. You know, I mean, who does that? You know.
Like an opera. I'm totally blanking on an artist's name. Jefferson, who's the person in the Art Institute whose work is exhibited? This isn't a video artist particularly, who's surreal and has all these constructions in the blue, you know. Oh, and they're sort of dark. What is that? In the dark. He's not a video artist. No, and they're constructions and they're surreal, and he died in the 50s, and I know this artist as well as I know Da Vinci, and I can't think of his name. Oh, I've had a brain freeze here. It'll come to me in a minute. So, but these are he did some movies, and they were historical movies, and some were like on a subway, on an elevated train, and the train was elevated, and the images is upside down, and I'll figure it out in a minute. But the question I'll figure it out while you answer the question. Is there a crossover between contemporary video collecting and old movies, old art movies? Like Salvador Dali did movies, and the person whose name I'm trying to think of did movies. What do you mean by crossover? You know, people collecting those the people, yes. They're starting to come out more, but actually the Electronic Arts Intermix, EAI, and her name is Rebecca Clement. She's the director of EAI, and they do a wonderful job controlling and distributing these works. I mean, when I say controlling, I mean putting them in the right hands, making sure they're digitized properly, and selling them actually. And sometimes you can buy them for a somewhat truncated fee of like several $100s or something, so you can buy these works. But I don't think they're collected though, because one important point of distinction, and a little tiny video art history reference, is that video work was never made to be collected. Bruce Nauman, Bill Viola, Tony Orsler, all of these people started working with the medium to sort of get away from the studio practice that fostered collectors. So actually video work, in a way, was non-commodifiable when it first started. But didn't they come around? I mean, didn't all those artists, I mean, Bill Viola is certainly making art for consumption. Tony Orsler is. But I mean, in the beginning, I'm talking the late 60s, early 70s. You know, I mean, look at what Nam Young Paik did. Nam Young Paik, that work wasn't come out. I think they realized that it wasn't going to sell. But Bruce Nauman, of course, makes an edition of 250. His first videos were editions of at least 50, because he wanted the work to get out there. So I don't think the idea of it being commodifiable was, to answer your question about the film, I don't think these artists would have ever thought that these works were for sale. Like Andy Warhol didn't make an edition of the, I mean, from what I know, editions of this work don't exist. So the only people I think he probably thought that they were going to sell from people seeing them in theaters and making money not from the actual copy, but from attendees. From distributor, yeah, from distributing, exactly. And now to thoroughly embarrass myself, it was Joseph Cornell, whose name I couldn't think of. Oh, I didn't know he made video work. I mean, film work. I didn't know that at all. Yes, I did. Actually, yes, I did. Yes, I did. So there's this wonderful story that I heard. I have a friend who lives in Houston who was a good buddy of Walter Hopps, and Walter Hopps didn't drive. So, and my friend would, when Walter wanted to go somewhere, frequently my friend would drive him around. And I said, if you ever go to dinner with Walter, let me know. I'll fly down. And one day he called me like a year later and said, dinner tonight with Walter, can you make it? And I said, I'm coming. So I flew from Chicago to go down to dinner, and there was just like the three of us out to dinner we had a 5-hour conversation. And one of the amazing stories that Hopps told was about how he had gone to dinner with Salvador Dali at Joseph Cornell's home in Brooklyn. And that Dali had said, I hear you're making movies, let me see some of them. And so Cornell went and probably got his movies and started showing, projecting the movies. and Dali went into a hissy fit and started screaming about how, you know, as you can imagine he might, about how Cornell was totally ripping him off and emulating and copying his movies, and what a fraud he was.
Oh,
and, you know, after hearing that, Cornell, who was a very quiet, introverted kind of a human being, walked, you know, I think it was a one-bedroom, two-bedroom home, walked into his bedroom, came out a moment later with a Dali painting under his arm and a shovel. And he walked out the front door, and he came back a half hour later with just the shovel.
That's hilarious. Oh, my gosh, I love that.
You know, so that's what made me wonder. I mean, because you know, somewhere buried in Brooklyn is a Dali painting, maybe. And, but, you know, I mean, they obviously, I assume, have something to do with the history. I can see a line from Cornell and Dali to, you know, Andy Warhol's video movies, and I can see a line from Warhol to the present. So I think that there's some kind of, you know, interesting continuity there.
It doesn't surprise me about Dali, because Dali got arrested once because he did a window at Saks Fifth Avenue, and he didn't like it. So he actually broke into the store, and he was arrested that night because he, you know, I mean, who does that? But anyway, there is a line, I think, between all of this early, and also you have people like Michael Snow, you know, early structural film makers, right, that we're beginning to reference too. So I think there's definitely a crossover there. I think that a lot of artists are still using film, which kind of beguiles me sometimes, but I think they like the object quality of film, because video has this lack of haptic. It's this intangible, you know, work, whereas film has a physical relationship. It has a sound. There's an apparatus that plays it and all of these types of things. So I think people are moving back into film a lot more.
I think that's a really interesting point. You guys, there's a fabulous movie called that you can rent, Picasso and Braque Go to the Movies. Have you seen that, Jefferson?
No, but I'm going to write it down. Picasso and Braque Go to the Movies?
It's brilliant. And it's done by, I'm going to forget somebody else's name. Well, the producer is the same guy from Pace. Arnie Glimcher, I think, was intricately involved in this. And it's real clear that the notion of early tripods and early forms and early movies, Picasso and Braque saw, and the movies highly influenced Cubism and a lot of the forms that Picasso and Braque used in their artwork, and it creates an irrefutable argument about the relationship of early cinema to Braque and Picasso art. It's really enlightening.
And for me, film, I mean, I read a lot of film theory when I was in grad school, and one of the people that I really liked was Deleuze. And Deleuze talks about image making and about time and space. And Paul Virilio also talks about how the moving image affects space more than architecture can actually do.
More Deleuze you're talking about?
No, now I'm talking about Virilio. But I mean, Virilio talks about how architecture doesn't do the same thing to space that film does. And for me as an architect, that was really wonderful. It allowed me to understand Berlin, actually, without having to deal with Nazis and the DDR, you know, the Eastern Bloc. It was like my only way to really get into Berlin was through film. Not necessarily films of Berlin, but the idea of film as a construct. So I think it's a wonderful way to develop a thought pattern. I mean, I think it's a wonderful way to study through the idea of film. It's also a way of, it's a mirror, right? Film also can become a mirror of how we see ourselves, and it can also reference or be a catalog of our past. So I think it has a wonderful relationship that photography has, but of course it captures a lot more, right? It captures sound, light, and many frames, you know, several hundred frames within a few minutes.
That's really cool. I could go on, but I find this really, really fascinating, this whole note. I mean, I think what I really like about this discussion, how it becomes so all-encompassing, and you can have all these really stimulating ideas that I think hone one's brain. Excuse me, and it isn't, you know, solely artists who have a monopoly on the passion, the joy, the thrill of participating in the art world. Obviously, Jefferson shares that too. Uh-oh, that begs the question, are you going to make art? Are you going to do a video?
No, I made a sculpture this year. I made an architectural installation at Terrain.
Oh, that's right. That was really good. That was a really good piece.
Thank you. I made an installation there, and I did
a one-shot deal. You're not gonna. There's no encore.
Maybe, but not a video. No, that would be too. That would be too
difficult.
Easy. You know? No, it would be too. No, I say too easy. It would be too. People. It would be. I mean, I could hear the eye rolling, you know, all over, you know, with the idea of me making a video. So I wouldn't do that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll check back with you in a couple of years. Karen has a question. Yes, Karen.
So, yeah, this is a little bit weird. I just talked today with a friend of mine who's an artist in California. We haven't talked in years, but when we were living in Spain, his ex-wife came, and she was a filmmaker and was working with holography, and the two of them went up and met with Dali. And Dali was into holography at the time, and I didn't know what the film was that could utilize holography. Do you know anything about that or the history of it? And if it ever developed more than that, than experimental?
Actually, no, I don't. It's funny, I really don't. I know there's a museum of holography here in Chicago, but I don't, which I've never been to actually, to be honest with you. But I don't know about whether how that. I know that Dan Graham. Are you familiar with Dan Graham, the artist?
Mm-mm.
Dan Graham did some early video work where he, not really holography, but he would put a camera into a two-way mirror glass. So it had all these kinds of relationships that are similar to holography. I know it's not the same thing, but I don't really know to answer your question. That's really interesting. Was this filmmaker working, this friend of yours, a friend of a friend, were they working with, or still working with holography?
I don't know. I mean, as I said, I hadn't talked to him in years, and I wanted to reconnect because I think I might be going to California, and since his art is in museums, I thought he'd be a good person to talk with. So I'll ask him. I don't know if he's married to another artist now. I don't even know if he has a relationship with his ex-wife. Well,
I mean, the good thing about the obviously institutions support video work a lot more. It's a wonderful opportunity for them to support video artists. I think, does your friend make video work or no? The one in California.
Oh, no, he's a painter.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because I know that a lot of, like I said, a lot of institutions, you know, obviously support video artists. But I don't know that much about holography, actually.
Yeah. Well, in the Dali Museum, there were holographs. I mean, that was a real interest of his. But this filming, I don't know how they did it. And you know, I think it might be something in the future where television is going to have holography, where you have 3D coming out into your living room. But you know, I don't know what the state of that art is, if it's developed at all.
I know what they did. I know, now that you mention this, I mean, it's not holography again, but this idea of challenging an object and challenging how we look at it. Tony Orsler had a show at Metro Pictures in New York, I think 4 years ago, and he did things with the video that you really, he did things where he had these animated cigarettes that he projected. Do you familiar with Tony Orsler? He projects these weird scenarios of lips or eyes, like two eyes coming together, and he projects it onto like a pillow. It looks like a pillow. So it has this really weird, otherworldly quality to it. Very, very, very well-established video artist. And he did this in Metro Pictures where he had cigarettes, and people were telling me that they could actually smell the smoke, even though there was no smoke to smell. So this real push. And actually the Eames, Charles and Ray Eames, did films like this where they tried to immerse the viewer and challenge the way the viewer perceived space and time. It's a really interesting subject, actually, because it can really have a dramatic effect on the viewer. and it can also convey something that's not there, which is really interesting, right? I mean, you know, it challenges our way that we perceive space.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay.
Jefferson, I think we should wrap this up. I've loved this conversation. I think you're just, you know, a really fabulously interesting.
Thank you. I hope I wasn't boring. It's the end of the day, and I didn't know if I hope I don't know.
It wasn't boring to me. I loved it. And I mean, I think we're a little bit off some of these other folks' media. But I think we can all extrapolate from these different kinds of things, and, you know, appreciate your passion and your vision, and, you know, the expansiveness of your pursuit of these things. I think you are wonderful. I really appreciate it. Let me unmute everybody so we can thank you in unison, and then I'm going to stop the recording, and I have some other things I want to talk about off the recording. Hold on a sec. Everybody's now unmuted. Jefferson, thank you very, very much. I've loved this. Thank you.
Jefferson.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.